Corrie Thorne, spiritual healer. Oh, still left up a card from last night. I'm like, oh, look, didn't clean up from last night's party. Good morning, good morning. Just letting people get in, join in here. I'm having a hot flash. Whew. So I don't know. I'm just waiting to see if I'm actually up and anywhere here because I don't see. Clean up from last night's party. I'm having a hot flash. So, just lighting a candle to go with our full moon of today. We are in Scorpio full moon. We got some supercharged, super light energy with this one. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, good morning. So, just lighting a candle to start this day. There's 2 of you in here now. There's 8 people watching. There's more people watching than there is commenting. And I always say, even those that don't comment, I'm very aware that you're there. I know you're there. I appreciate it so very much. The garbage truck is going down the road and just kind of makes sense to some of the energy I'm channeling today as the garbage truck is going down the road. It's time to throw out the garbage. And it is such a truth. This is a Scorpio full moon day. We are in full moon energy. We have a lot of emotions running wild, running overfloweth with this full moon. This full moon brings about a change. This week we have like Pluto is going into like Mercury retrograde. You are going to see like a standoff. You're going to see a stand up. You're going to see like, it just feels like there's just something big in the works somehow in the energy. And I just feel like it's like you just find yourself wanting to kind of get in that energy somehow. So it's like sometimes the garbage throws itself out. Yes, Peggy. Yes, it does. Yes, it sure does. So I'm having a hot flash. So just so you know, I'm like sweating. I have no makeup on. I'm having a menopausal moment. I was getting dressed. I put a sweater on. I take a sweater off. I look in the mirror and I go, what the fuck was this with this today? Why do I look like this today? I look like I've been through the war today. Like, I'm like, oh, I just like falling apart. And yesterday I was so well put together. So every day right now in this energy is like it's like every day for you is like a surprise package. For some of us, I'm an Aries. I'm a fire sign. This Scorpio water energy is like, God, could you just like leave me alone? Leave me to my own devices. And I literally thought I had a full day today booked of sessions. And then I realized, no, I booked today off because I teach on Sundays and not off. I booked it to do recordings today because the rest of my week is all sessions and teaching. And so then I'm like, great, I'll get a lot of things done. Well, I went downstairs. I went to pick up a box because I'm moving. And I went to pick up a box and I lost everything on the floor. I went to take something out of the closet and I spilled it all over the floor. No matter where I go today, it's my day. So I quit. Oh, I'm flashing, guys. I got to show my flabby arms here, but I'm sorry because they're not working out arms lately. They have not been working out at all. Right. Every day is a surprise package. That's exactly right. Good morning. Everybody's joining. So we've just been letting people join in to get the room filled up, to let the energy come in. Last night. Oh yeah, Peggy, you're an Aries. Yeah. You know what I mean to be an Aries. Yes. And so today is actually, so in the energy, and this is why, because it's doing this to me, is today in the energy, it's actually, this is like a rest. This is the pause. You're supposed to be pulling yourself back. It is almost like being in a slingshot right now. It's like you're supposed to pull yourself back into the energy, sit in this right now and allow yourself to sit. So I asked the angel cards before I came in, not my deck, but the angel cards, Diana Cooper, what was the card of that I need? What did I need to know today? And I got honesty. And I'm like, really? I'm pretty damn honest. But there's a lot of areas in our lives where our fear of being like offending, hurting anybody leaves us not being, it leaves us in that half honesty. So we're just existing. So there may be areas in your life where you're not fully speaking your truth. And one of mine comes up with my ancestry and where I'm sitting with some of the things that are happening in my amongst my people and where I am with the Mi'kmaq First Nations in Newfoundland and what is happening in Newfoundland today. So I'm trying to find a voice and trying to find a way without being without getting too invested into losing myself on a journey, because that I can't do. But I want to say this energy. So I'm just reading and channeling at the same time, guys. So if you've never been into my lives, if you've never been around my work at all, I work as a mystic. I work as a channel. I channel through the energy. So what that means to be a channel is that I literally give over my brain and my body to the spirit world. And so the energy of those who've walked before or those who have never been to earth channel through me. And so when I'm channeling, you may be looking at me and looking at the Corrie that you just see every day, Corrie. But once I start to channel, I'm channeling, I'm giving over that part of me. So reading comments and answering questions and those things can't always happen. Depends on how deep into the channel I become. Some people in here notice it and they go, Corrie's channeling again. She's not even looking at the comments. So it's not that I'm being snobby or ignoring comments or not answering. Is once I start channeling, I can't do it all because it's like this is all kind of consumed in that channeling. And the longer I've done this, the more it takes over. And so and it comes so that there is no attachment to my human connection and the human stories when I give the messages. It comes from unconditional love. I always say in spirit world, they don't go, oh, come here, Muffin, you're offended. Oh, your feelings are hurt. Oh, come here, let me coddle you. No, they're unconditional. So it means they don't pick sides. They don't have sides. They have, this is what it is. This is how it is. And that's where they sit with it. And it's like, and so what it does, it gives us something to contemplate, something for us to think about, something to process so that we can get out of our own heads and get out of our own way. Because we have a whole pile of us, a whole world that is stumbling over its own feet in the desire to be pleased right now, to have things right now, to have change right now. And we were always changing, man. We've been evolving and changing since the beginning of time. That's just, but it's not fast enough for some people, and people want it right now. Emma, muffin, right? Yeah, oh, muffin, right? And I said, yeah. And someone used to say that to me at work. One of the girls who said that to me at work when they'd be teasing me about having a queenie day or oh, muffin, and I used to just laugh, and that would break the energy, right? It's like just say oh, muffin, and so then it breaks the energy. So we are in full moon energy. You may be having a lot of ups and downs. This is a time to release and let things go to, and I don't mean sometimes you don't need to have a voice. Sometimes you don't need to preach it out to let it go. Sometimes you need to speak to yourself and ask yourself, is this really serving me to hold on to this? What am I harboring? So today, let's focus on what we're harboring. What are you harboring today? What is holding you back? What is sitting there inside of you that's festering and it's turning you into either a grumpy pants, giving you attitude, leading you into your addictions, whether it's food, alcohol, your phone. Everybody has an addiction to something. OCD, right down to how you want to fold your towels and put them in the closet, and that no one else can do it right. How you load the dishwasher, how you do things that no one else can help you, but you'll complain that nobody else can help you. I have to do everything. Nobody else can help. That's a so little self-prophecy story to I am so much more than everybody else. I am so much better than everyone else. And so I do things better. I'm better. I got a better way than everybody else. And that's what we do. But we don't want to look at it that way. And so from the eyes of Corrie, of how I spoke to myself, how I wrote More Than Existing, was that I literally started to speak to myself that way. I'm like, really? So that's really healthy for you. Like you truly believe that all that, no one else can help me because no one else knows how to do it. And it's like, really, nobody can assist you in any way. You're really that freaking good. Like, think about that. So you'll suffer in misery. You'll be in this misery. You'll get an attitude. You'll become like cranky and nothing ever fully gets done because you're so caught up in yourself. Get over yourself. And that's how I used to speak to myself. And I still do sometimes because it is that accountability. I hold myself accountable for my own thoughts, for where I am in my own head before I spewed out on somebody else that it's somebody else's fault how I feel today. It's my doing. And so when you take that ownership of your own life and you step into that energy, you have less times that you're going to be trying to reel it back in, apologizing, taking it back, walking around with even more guilt because on top of what you already carried, then when you spew it out, then your real self comes back and you're like, "Oh God, like maybe that wasn't the right thing to say." When you know what you're going to say and you know it's right, you don't look back. You don't look back. When you know it is the right, when you have processed and you have questioned yourself and you have asked and you have researched all sides, not just your side or the view that you want to see. When you have researched and viewed all sides, and then you know your truth, then you stand up and when you speak your truth, it's not lashed at anyone in particular. It is just speaking the truth. I could be wrong, but this is how I feel. And this is my truth. I'm not asking or pushing it as an agenda onto anyone else. That's just how I feel. And then you can walk away and you know that you said what you needed to say that was in alignment to you and you're not going to hold it, but you're also not throwing it onto somebody else. So you're not throwing your garbage, you're not spewing your shit onto somebody else and letting somebody else then suffer so that somebody else can feel what you want them to feel because that's the agenda. You want someone else to feel as shitty as you feel that day. And we don't look at it that way because we get so all consuming. So we have a whole world that's very all consuming in a lot of ways because we have a lot of spiritual and emotional immaturity. We've been fighting over things such as God and fighting over Jesus and who knows what and who's responsible for what. And just look at all the responsibility we laid on this energy or this name of God, and then all that we laid upon Jesus. Like we laid all this responsibility up on all this. Did they tell us that? Or did we as humans lay all of that out there? These are all snowballs of creations that just show up to put responsibility onto somebody else so that when things go wrong, we got somebody else to blame and we don't have to take responsibility ourselves. And that's a truth. And that's a truth. Right? How can I handle the sometimes it's easier to do it myself thought? Because sometimes it's true. Is that the same as what you're talking about? So Karen, there's two thoughts of that. So sometimes it's easier to do it yourself. You have to look at what that statement means for you. Why is it easier to do yourself? Is it because you want it done in your time and your way? Is it because you want things done exactly how you want it to be and you're unwilling to just settle for it being done another way? Because what if the other way, can you look past the other way? Right? It's like, so when you have a hardcore habit, like a conditioning to this is how things are, this is the only way that it can be, then you have to really explore your statement deeper. So I say, break the statement down. Is it easier, or is it that you're just so used to taking the more difficult road, right? So that you can stay in the energy after. Or is it something that's satisfactory? Like there's things in my life that nobody can do for me. Nobody can channel my work for me. And that's something nobody can do for me because it's an impossible task. And so these to do this is not always easy, but this is something that no matter how much I've tried to not do it, it shows up, right? And so you have to break it down, probably my way, like I do. I need to relax the attitude, I think. Yes. Thank you, Karen. Exactly. And that's what I mean. It's like, so you give yourself that broad statement and you live in that broad statement. And so you're owning every little piece of that statement. So in other words, it's like, is it that people cannot help you? Or did they get tired of trying to help you and you got and just tired of that same response every time? Or the fact that you make people feel little smaller sometimes because you go back and redo what somebody else has done for you. And trust me, I've had to do this. Ask Lisa. I've had to learn this myself. It's like, and it's such a thing that it happens. So I'm just looking back up. I just seen a few. Hello, hello, everybody who's joining. Hi, hi, hi. So nice to see everybody here today. Um, Anyone want to come do my laundry, Emma? Really wouldn't care how you fold my towels, right? And so, like, back to Emma. So, my grandmother did her laundry and no one else did her laundry. And it wasn't that probably anyone else couldn't do it. It's just that she ironed everything. And that was what she loved to do. She called that like her meditation. So if anyone else took away her meditation of the day, you were messing with, but she said that was her job and her duty as who she was as a woman, but it was also her meditation. She said, I know I don't have to iron that, but she would starch, whistle, and sing and hum and do whatever she was doing, and she would iron. It was her way to step away. And so if you look back through history and time, when they didn't have a lot of free time, when they had to do a lot of things by hand, they had a lot less time to sit in their thoughts. Like, because your action is keeping the flow of energy moving, right? And so there's things and times that, it's like that you like to do. That makes sense to you too, Julie? Yeah, and so it's that flow, that movement, that shift. And so there is things in my house that I like to do. I used to love to cook. And Corey, my partner, he also loves to cook. And because I'm not as good as him at it in so many ways of it's not that, I guess, not that I'm not so good. He has such a passion for it. I don't have time for it. So when he comes home, that's his downtime. That's how he meditates, is through his cooking. I call him a kitchen witch. And he's always in the kitchen. He spends hours like looking through books, but he never cooks by the recipe. He just gets all these thoughts, these ideas, and he starts to create. And then he goes out into the kitchen and he creates. And I've learned to step back and stay out of the kitchen. And I don't go in the kitchen. I stay out of the kitchen when he's home to cook. Other times I throw things in the crock pot. I make things for the freezer. And I love to do that when I know I want to work through something. When I'm creating a program, when I'm doing those things, I do that, and I do that. So we have found a balance, right? So there's things, right? I've let some things go, like the dishwasher. Hubby and kids help, right? Just roll with it, because is it going to change your life? So if somebody puts the towels in the closet a different way, is the world going to end? Will the world crash and burn? No, no. It's all where you put what you're unwilling to work on sometimes. So the things that we hold hostage inside of ourselves, that entrap us inside of us, are the things that get trapped in us. And so so the towels become the outlet of those things that you are suppressing. Lucy, you'd love to have a kitchen witch? I love having a kitchen witch. It's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. And we're both named Corey. So someone says, "Oh, Corey cooked that." And I'm like, "Yes, yes, Corey cooked that." So, yeah. And so that's, when you look at things, so it's perspective, right? It's that you've got to be willing to expand beyond the perspective of the stories that you have told yourself for way too many years. And that's ownership and responsibility, is when you can truly look beyond that. And so today is, what is festering? What are you holding on to? As long as you do it my way, right? And that's been, right? And that's always been such a thing. So when we look at things like the past and the negative feelings, is that attachment to what we hold on to from the past. What owns you? What owns you? What claims you? What do you keep laying? Which story? So if you're trying to heal, if you're doing your healing work from trying to stay into the past or trying to bring back who you used to be, you'll never heal. Never. You might get a little ways, but when you start to feel good, you go back into the habits, right? And so you have to do everything from where you are today. You can't keep revisiting that past. You know it, you lived it. Why do we want to keep living in it? It's like living in the swamp, right? Why do we want to keep putting ourselves back into that energy? From where I am today, what can I do for me today? from who I am today. See yourself at the end of the story. See yourself at the end. See yourself beyond the trauma. See yourself beyond the point of when that happened to you, when the abuse happened to you. See the day that you stood up for yourself, that you learned to walk away. See yourself then. And see the courage and strength that it took, because I can tell you, it is more than just you. It is something that is more powerful, that is a being presence that is within us. And when you can see that, you need to call up on that, to be present with who you are today. I have done this before. There is something inside of me that can help me do this. What story is holding you hostage today that is working for you somehow to be able to stay where you are? Right? And that's what you got to be able to change. You've got to be able to take that ownership and responsibility for who you are, not for somebody else's shit. Somebody else's shit is their shit. They didn't take your light away. It's impossible for that person to take your light away. They shadowed over you. They left you with their garbage. They dumped their garbage onto you, and they left you with that feeling, that sensation. And you believe it to be true, so you hold on to it. The only thing that holds it to be truth is the fact that you keep believing it to be true. That, I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable because somebody else probably told you you were. That's you believing somebody else's story. So you're living in the existence of all that they threw on you, instead of living in the existence of knowing know the person who had the courage to walk away. Know the person who had the courage to do all the other things that you have done in this lifetime. Work from her. Find the golden nuggets, and you heal from the golden nuggets from who you are today. And that's how you start the journey, by constantly staying in the past. And what role do we play in our story, right? You got to be willing to take responsibility. What is my role? Right? Yeah. So exactly, Ricky. So they put their laundry away. So sometimes you got to compromise. Welcome, everybody. So glad to see everybody here. We haven't even got a card out yet, guys. And we've been just like, blah, since we got in here. So this is about the festering, what's festering inside of you. And it's like, and so the negative feelings own you because you put your focus in the negative. Right? And not saying it's easy. I'm not saying healing is easy. I'm saying healing is possible, but it's where you heal from, where you're trying to do your healing from. If you keep going back and you keep reliving and living in the story, instead of living from the end of the story of the courage that it took to not be there, that's where you got to go. The woman who was the survivor, the woman who found her way through, or the man, whichever one you are, finding that way through. And that's the one. It's like you got to look at what it took to get there. Okay, so we are in attitudes this morning. It is about what keeps us held hostage, what keeps us like thinking, in our little stories that we tell ourselves, and the energy and our self-prophecies of how, oh, nobody can do things for me. Nobody's good enough. Like nobody can happen. And it's the same thing with the martyr story. That person who says, I'm always the one who's there for everybody. I'm always the one who shows up for everybody. I'm the first one there all the time. So that whole story that you want everybody to know, and that you have to tell everybody that you are the first one there, that's your claim to fame. What that means is that you're judging everybody else who is not there, but you also want that hero's cookie. You want that biscuit, that reward. You want to be rewarded somehow because it is fulfilling some sort of lack of, some sort of story that trails you from either childhood, younger adult, that is in the spiritual and emotional immaturity that keeps you there. So it's like you want everyone to stand up and applaud you and say, yes, yes, let me bow to that I'm not. And so it's like, let me make everyone else feel little that is not there for them. And let me get into everyone's head that they're not. And I am. So I am so much greater. And when I start to learn those things, I'm like, holy shit, that is such a truth, such a truth. And I've had a few martyrs in my life that have fallen away from my life because when they realize that I don't need saving, because they're always there for saving, when they realize you don't need saving, then they turn you into their enemy. And so when the person is there for that objective to save them, to do the things for themselves so they don't have to focus on what they need to do for themselves, they're always going to be there for somebody else. And no focus is going into them. And it's not that they're even awake and aware of it. Until you become awake and aware of it, you don't know any different. You just do what you do. But once you're awake and you're aware, now it's a motive to manipulate. Once you know, you know. Once you've been told, once you hear it, once you know it, then you know it. It's there. Now it's your job. Now the ball is in your court to do the work that needs to be done to make the changes. And that's the truth. And I am very honest that way. So even if people are working with me, I don't I don't do fillers. I always say is, I don't want to hear the story that you've told 8,000 people already about how hard you've had it. I want you to tell me what you need because I'm here for you. I'm not here for the past. I'm here for who you are today. What do you need? What are you seeking? What needs to change? What are you looking for? Because everything else is a filler. You're just justifying, explaining, just, criticizing whatever it is of who you used to be or why you've done all the things you've done. You've done them. They're past. What happened yesterday is no longer here. It's gone. What you did yesterday, what you did 6 years ago, what you did 20 years ago, fuck, that version of you is dead. It's not even here anymore. So why is the person of you today still paying the price for what you did at 20? Think about it. Think about it. And so when people compare you, when people say, oh, well, I remember you back when you used to do this and used to that. And I'm like, well, good thing you remember, right? It's like, because that version of me is not here. If I had to stay who I was at 20, oh, God help me. I mean, she was fun, don't get me wrong. But the why behind a lot of the behavior came from a whole lot of like stories I had in my head of being a number two child. Also came from what I allowed men in relationships to do to me, control, manipulate, like bullshit stuff, right? And so this is who you are today. And you have to work from who you are today. So the card we just pulled, the card we just pulled is Vedoma. And Vedoma is the soul connection. And the soul connection, which most people forget, everybody's looking to get into a relationship with somebody, looking for love, looking for happiness, looking to be completed by the world. Let me find her. And so the world is never going to complete you, fix you, or heal you. The Vedoma, the soul connection, is that your twin flame self, the version of you that you are seeking and searching, everything that you try to be from spirit. Oh, I'm going to find my soul self. I'm going to heal my soul. Your soul self don't need you to heal it. It is your human that has taken all the action steps that you have taken, who have stayed beyond all the red flags that you ever had, who keeps staying in your misery story, who keeps complaining about everybody in the house and will not let anybody help them because they're not doing it right. That's all on us. And that stuff festers inside of us. So your soul connection is when you are willing to get into a relationship with you. And that means with your good, bad, and ugly. You got to get into a relationship with your good, bad, and your ugly. And when you get into a relationship with your good, bad, and your ugly of you, when you can truly start to see the things that you do instead of being able, it's amazing how we can observe and point out what everyone else does wrong in the world, but we can't point out what we do wrong ourselves. You're seeing it everywhere in the world right now. You're seeing it all over the media. You're seeing it everywhere, right? It's like there's that sense of that God complex in a human form of, my world would be better if this person wasn't doing this to me. If this person, no, your world would be better if you look in the mirror and you start talking to you. So instead of looking out at what everyone else is doing in the world, what are you doing? And so making that connection to you, when you start to do that, believe it or not, you know what happens? You start to get compassion. You start to feel for you, because that's why you're angry with the world, is because you have compassion for the world, but you have no compassion for you. You're willing to fester and brew that lack in yourself, that because you have so much of a drive, so much of a passion for everything outside, to do the right thing, to stand up, to be the voice, to be those things for everyone else. Do you have the courage to do it for you? And Vedoma is about having the courage. Having the courage to discover where your true essence of your courage comes from, where your true essence of strength comes from. To be strong means that you're able to be weak. And when you're able to be weak, you're willing to be able to then be able to surrender. As long as you are fighting, you are tied to the past. As long as you are so determined for everybody to know who and what you are tied, you are tethered. And you're not in a relationship with yourself. You're in a relationship with the material world and the material world making you happy. But Oma, she is pretty much stripping it all down. So the parts of her that are exposed, and if you notice, her top's like a heart shape. So she's got her most sacred pieces of her covered, but her sacral, her solar plexus, that midriff part of her, that's open and exposed because that's part of where she knows power comes from. And so power and love have that same feeling. And so what are you loving? Are you loving? What are you in love with? And what does love mean to you? Does it mean a love of power, a love to be in control, a love to have everything your way? So or is it a love where it's love unconditional? And so as long as you have conditions up on anyone or anything, including yourself, then you are conditioned. You don't fully understand love. You understand love to what you have been conditioned, learned, and programmed. And when you can start to move beyond that and look a little bit deeper, it's amazing things that change. Sacral down into the emotional stories, the womb, the uterus, it's where you hold it. And if you did not give birth to it, it is not yours. And unless you adopt it. Unless you adopted a child, then that is just as much yours as anything else. But if you didn't give birth to it, it is not yours. So a man or a woman in your life that you are nurturing as if you are the mother, you are not the mother. And as long as you keep doing that, that's fulfilling something of your self-prophecy to be needed. And that's not going to serve anybody. Truth. And so Vedoma truly knows that to be able to create her future means that everything that she needs to do by letting the spirits of the past go. Let them find their peace. Because as long as you are holding somebody else from your past hostage to what you are existing in right now, you are keeping the spirits of the past alive. Hope that makes sense to you. Oh, you're welcome, Tara. So health frustrations are things that you need to explore, Olivia. Right? It's like, so there's things there that need to be explored. Where does it come from? What are what is the health concerns, and how did it get there, and how much are we harboring inside of us in emotions? So frustration will not help our illnesses, right? So are you frustrated with the healthcare system or frustrated with your own health? Separate the thought so that you can get to your truth there, so you can put the healing where it needs to go. All right, there's Vedoma, and I know she just probably made a lot of people quiet, and that's the whole point, is that when we can stop chattering, we can actually be able to connect. We can hear. It's in silence that we hear. It's in silence that we hear. When we learn to listen, we learn to listen to the reasoning that is outside of us. You're here for a reason today, Ashley. And so our other card that comes out with this is Mi Amor. And I love Mi Amor. And this is eternal. Life will always be full of ups and downs. So if you're waiting for life to be perfected, you're waiting for life to be smooth, you're waiting for life to, bring in all that you want, it's not going to be there. Once you learn to live from your truth, from your healed, healthy, spiritual, emotionally matured self, you are very aware that the fated experiences will happen, that there will be beginnings and endings. You don't live in fear of waiting for something to end, because you know what? Everything is going to end, right? It's like there's always endings and beginnings. So that whole sense, oh, but I'm so nervous, I'm so afraid. And I always get that when people say, oh, I'm afraid to go on the highway, I'm afraid to get in a plane, I'm afraid, I'm so fearful. I'm like, so just existing is not near as fearful as living. So we have an issue with living. And when we can see ourselves having an issue with living and being alive, then we can truly start to look at things and say, oh yeah, right? It's like, what are you fearful of? Are you fearful of the road? Or are you fearful of everything that you've ever heard from the past that could possibly go wrong? So you're not afraid of the plane itself, or you're not afraid of the road itself. You live in such paralyzing fear of possibility of what could go wrong that hasn't happened yet. Julie, did you just have an aha moment? Good. I love when people have aha moments. Right. And so this riding the wave is that you live this life with your heart wide open. You let yourself, you know what is sacred to you. You keep what is sacred. There's not, you don't have to share your whole, you don't have to be like me and share your whole freaking life with the world. I have sacred parts of me, and I have a sacred world that I live in. And one of those is pretty much my house. And I used to have a wide open door policy of, anyone who wanted to come to my house, I mean, I would do sessions, and then I pulled back on that some, because I've realized how porous my life is. And so when I discovered that, when I start being attacked and I start having attacked and I have to put in security systems in my home, I realized that, I had to start making some parts of my life a little more sacred. And because I wasn't living the life that I even used to live. And so things change, right? Several, actually. Good. Several for you too, Lucy. Yeah, and so by facing your fears is the first is not first you have to get honest with them, and that's where breaking it down. So it's like the statements. You have to break things down to put them in perspective so that you can start taking change. You can't just not everybody can take one big freaking leap of faith. It's not going to work that way. But it's to be able to find out what your what your real fear is. Is it a fear of is it because in a plane you're not in control and you have a very big fear of being in control? Well, ultimately you're in control of shit all here. You may think you are. So we give ourselves the stories and the narratives and we create those realities. I said, being afraid of heights, think about it. So we hear those stories. I'm afraid of heights. I'm so afraid of heights. But you live in a big freaking snow globe. You live in a big ball in a universe, not attached to anything, just up there floating around. Do you know how high up we really, if you stop and think about how high up you really are, right? It's like, it's all in perspective. It all ties into how many stories, how many illusions that we create into stories that become realities. Because we're all living in those stories and we create reality and fear stories, false evidence appearing real into those stories. And we live in them. And so they hold us hostage so often. So often. It's crazy what it happens to us. But we don't look at it that way because we're not programmed and conditioned that way. Right? And if we as society if we're teaching our next generations or we're guiding our next generations through media, through anything based on the fear story, it's just like this morning. I was watching something. I don't watch the news, but my partner does. He watches all sides, both sides of everything to gain his perspective. So he watches a lot of stuff. So when he's home, so there's news on. And so I don't turn a TV on when he's not home. But the TV was on and they were talking about bullying. And I said, here we are. Here's a media. So here's the news talking about having to get bullying under control. And I said, have you all not looked in the mirror? You want children to stop bullying, but that's what we are instilling in our whole world. I watched a glimpse of a documentary that was on Netflix, and it talks about having to turn your parents and having to turn anyone who's not in the same belief of being green and being those things. You have to turn them into your enemy and you have to start attacking them. And they were telling children this. And then our media, our news outlets, even the parents are on social media or they're in their house sitting talking to their partners about what assholes their neighbors are, and they're bullying each other all over the world, but we want children to be different. But now children, you shouldn't bully. Really? Really? Well, we're out in the streets and we're destroying everything, or we're on social media and we're ripping apart a woman, a mother. You look at Constance Hall and look at how she gets fucking shred it. But those same women may be the same ones wearing the pink shirt. We have to stand up together. We have to support each other. If we want to see the change in our children, we have to start the change in us. And it starts with one individual person. You can't change the world. You can change you. And you have to be that change. You have to be that change. And that means you can't even bully your own family. And you can't bully yourself. So when you stop bullying yourself, you stop bullying everyone else, because then everyone else is not so responsible for everything that happened in the past. We were already growing. We were already changing. Right? And so there's so many areas. And I chuckle my ass off on a lot of this stuff because I am a channel, because I work from such a place outside of there that I get to see some of this. I chuckle because it's not really funny. I chuckles because we can't see that we are, we can't see as a society and a world that we have this level of maturity trying to make mature decisions. So if you think about it, if you got your finger on a nuclear bomb and you are offended by everything and you're out to get the other side, what does that say? Shouldn't we not be rational? Shouldn't we not think about all perspective? Should we not think about the dignity of humanity and humanity as a whole before we do those things? Same thing with leaders. Same thing with leaders, whether you're a chief or you're a prime minister. If your emotional, spiritual immaturity and your need to get what you want is overpowering and overruling the society in the job that you've been given, you're given the job to be a grown ass adult. And so to be responsible and mature, you have to look at people who made a choice, who maybe learned from their mistakes, who then stood up and said, whoa, do you not see what we're doing? Our anger is not doing anything. We're teaching next generations that this is okay. It is not okay, right? And so when you look at it, I do that to myself. I had to hold myself accountable for my own actions. And part of it came, right? And some of this came from me with this treaty card, which is on my desk today because I was doing some work. I have to cover up a lot of this treaty card so you can't see it. But that was my federal treaty card. Right. And so this was a federal treaty card. I own this federal treaty card. The paper that it comes on says this card can never be taken away from you. Do you know what happened to my federal treaty card? The government of Canada and the band and the council took it away from me. And my mother and my daughter. But my brother and his children still have it. Do you know why? Because I wasn't able or willing to stay in Newfoundland and live in Newfoundland and raise my child there when I had to leave to give her a better life. So there was a lot of years that if you wanted me to speak about what I thought of that band or what I thought of these people, it might not have been so pretty. Now I sit with this card and I sit with it in a way of looking at it. It's no good anymore. So even if someone tried to take the number, it really wouldn't matter because it's obsolete. They didn't just take the card. They wiped us out. They took us off the original list of the Newfoundland Indians. And I'm going to say Indians because the card actually still calls us Indians. Federal treaty card still calls you an Indian. And so all of that was taken away. And I found myself getting very bitter and very angry. And then I had to sit back. And I had to really do a lot of self-discovery and self-work because this, if you only knew what they made us give, we had to send to the federal government pictures. How degrading. Pictures of us doing Indian things, doing Aboriginal things, cultural things to prove that we were Indian enough. And that's a truth. And that was federal government only a couple years ago. And to the band who took that away. So the fights and where we fight from and what we do, and nobody then wanted to stand up and take responsibility for it. Nobody wanted to be accountable. There's a big class action lawsuit that we're all involved in, but there's such truth to that, right? And so those things happen, and it happens every day around you. But what can I do? How can I show up? So I, as an adult, as a mature adult, I was not going to let that eat away at me because it already did for long enough. I spent enough years trying to prove that I was Aboriginal enough, that I was Indian enough. I was always fighting of And I'm like, I'm not my ancestors. I am blended in diversity in love. And that's how I speak now. With or without that card, nobody can take away who and what I am at the heart and core. And the fact that I channel through this amazing Beathic woman who gives me such courage and strength to walk in my light and know who I am. So with or without that card, it doesn't change, but it gives me a whole new perspective on the motive to manipulate and what they do, what people can do. And so when you turn your people against each other, right? And so when we turn against ourselves, when we become our own worst enemy, we take ourselves so far away from who we are. Knowing who you are at your core will eventually lead you into the right place to have the right voice, the right place to be able to speak your truth. And you'll be able to turn on your heels and walk away with pride, with confidence, and all of who you are. And you'll know it. And that's the whole point of doing those things. It's like, if you get yourself out of the swamp, don't live in the past. The history is there for a reason. It really is. It's not there to be wiped out. It is there to be remembered, to the why, to how we got to where we are. So this is why I say build a relationship with you. You don't forget what you went through. It doesn't leave you. Even when you do the forgiveness work, the surrendering work, your past, you can't run away from your past. You can't run away from versions of you. It is with you. So when you learn to fall in love with your good, your bad, your ugly, and say, you know what, I did do those things. I'm not saying I didn't do those things. I'm not saying I didn't, and I'm not saying this didn't happen to me. I'm saying it doesn't own me. So it's about not letting those things have ownership over you, that it doesn't claim you, own you, so that it turns you into this dark space energy where your anger and your frustration, it is what's ruling your life. Let your truth, because all of that, even when you're suppressing it, it shows up as attitude. This is a time, a space, and with this full moon, like I said, there's a lot of emotional stuff. Love. Love for you, love for yourself, love for others, respecting others. Most of all, the most important things. And this was in my meditation that I did yesterday that I channeled through. It's like the four-leaf clover and folding in ourselves. And the dignity, the thing that holds that between the root. So between the root and what is at the top is the core strength of the structure. And that is called dignity. It is called dignity. And we are here to be able to understand the power of dignity from the experiences of what we have experienced, of our own behavior, our own actions, or what the past had, and to learn to have dignity for each and every one upon this earth, including you. So everything that you want somebody else to change within them, put that into you until you know that you are strong enough in your core, that you are willing to listen. Doesn't mean you're going to agree with everybody, but you're going to receive and get all sides. And you're not going to live in the existence of the illusions of the stories that you create your reality of a one-sided version, and you become so caught in that conviction. I know I'm right and everybody else is wrong, and that owns you. It is time to be able to allow ourselves to come up to there. So that's why my work has so become, I did not know when I started to write More Than Existing that it would become the 5 books and a deck of cards that was about inspiration and attitude, or that this would come out during COVID and it would be about more than just existing, that it would be, through my story, about ownership and responsibility for your life. That when I said in my premonitions of my dreams, when I was with Mother Mary and I had to put the crown on the head of Jesus, had to give him my suffering and to be of service, was that at the end, I was still holding the crown as much as I said I wasn't, because if I was still suffering, if I was still living in the misery stories, I had to still be holding the crown. I still had to be holding the pain, still had to be holding onto that energy. And it was when I finally could let that go. And that took some real deep-seated looking inside of me, looking in that mirror and taking that responsibility. Because if we want the next generations to change, we have to do what we need to change. And that means the bullying, that means the motives to manipulate, that means taking a big look at one big thing at the top right here, turning all the little people into enemies. And when that whole to divide and separate leads to conquering, there's such a truth, right? And so our ego, so this is inside of us, Our one big ass ego story that we get caught up in has us fighting with all versions of ourselves, has us running all over the place until we become an enemy with our own selves. And when we can set ourselves free of that, we can come back home to us, see yourself at the end of all those stories, see what it took to get there, and then start to be able to bring that forward, asking your guardians, your angels, asking for that help, being allow yourself to be weak where you need to be. And that's how we start to be able to rise back into the energy. You start to come back home to you. The way home to you is not a fight. The way home to you is resting, pausing. You stop fighting. You stop fighting you, you stop running from you, and you start to allow your heart to open. Not everyone out there is your enemy. Not everyone's out to get you. Not everyone's out to get you. And so our last card to finish out our day, and you just can't make this shit up. It is She Is. It is the card we always get when we have these deep channeled messages. So I can tell you pretty much that I was channeling Mother Mary today. So as I was channeling through the beautiful Mother Mary energy today, we had a lot of beautiful messages here, a lot to contemplate, a lot to think about. If you're just coming in now, I do suggest going back and watching from the beginning. And I'm not saying I know what's right for everybody, because I don't. And I don't preach about, I don't preach that way. I teach and guide based on more than existing. Is about, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. Ever. I'm not going to tell you what is best for you. I'm going to give you the tools so that you can decide. And I'm going to tell you that the person I'm looking at today, I don't need you to justify who you are. I don't need you to tell me that you're good enough or that you're sorry for what you've done in the past. I just sit with me. Tell me what you need today. And just tell me where, what needs to change for you, and I'll help you. But it's like all the rest, you don't need to keep repeating and explaining yourself. You've been doing that long enough. Ride the wave. Set yourself free. And it starts with stop justifying. You knew she was coming. Hey, Trey, she's always coming up. And sorry, Becky, I'm just finishing up. And I was just doing more of a general reading. The last 2 days, I've been in doing mediumship. So today, this is the angels. This message was needed for everybody today. And this is the everyday miracles. She is. And she is her own creation. And we truly are. If you want to see a better world, we want to see a better life. It got to start with us, right? If we don't want to be having to be the slave to our own misery, then we're going to have to make the changes we need to make, but not letting it hold you, not letting it own you. And so she is today. How can you take action steps towards being the beginning of your own miracle today? Miracles can't come if you're not willing to walk forward. You've got to be willing to walk forward. So thank you. And to anybody who's new, this is my deck of Oracle cards. This is my deck that I channeled through and created the channeling work and the writings for, and the artwork is done by Amelia Richard, an amazing artist who does incredible work. She also has a Facebook page. So these are my work. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. These are called the Everyday Goddess Oracles. So we all have that everyday goddess within us. We all have that power within. Why do we look to the past to be inspired when we have so much inspiration upon this earth? And all you have to do is look into the mirror and you can see the inspiration. Be the inspiration in yourself today. Be your own guru. Much, much love. I love you all. Mwah. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.